Tonight on CBC Vancouver News. Ottawa forks over money for seniors care in BC.
I don't know how far $700 million goes.
The funding announcement met with hope and skepticism over what exactly that money will do. Plus, pushback to a proposal in Richmond.
Personally, as a parent, I have very big concern.
I don't think it's safety for our kids.
A supervised consumption site has strong support from City Council, but strong opposition from many residents. Also, a tragedy leads to an unusual hobby.
I've worked through my grief and love with my hands.
How one man is finding solace in making coffins and helping others at the same time.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Good evening, I'm Tanya Fletcher. Thanks for joining us. Well, funding is now being funneled to seniors care in BC, and for many, it can't come soon enough. The federal government is earmarking upwards of $700 million for seniors care province-wide. It's all part of a $1.2 billion agreement between the province and the feds that was announced last October. Our Michelle Gomez is hearing from those with loved ones in care who say it is desperately needed.
All right, let's do this.
Expanding community care for seniors living at home, providing palliative care outside of hospital settings, and improving quality at long-term care homes. These are some of the objectives the Ministry of Health says new funding will accomplish.
After a lifetime of hard work and contributing to society, it's essential that we're there for our seniors to make sure that they have the quality of life and the quality of care they so richly deserve.
Scott Campbell's mother lives in a Fort St. John care home. He's made multiple complaints about the quality of care she receives and hopes this funding will make an improvement.
I don't know how far $700 million goes. I mean, anything that's going to help improve the life for our residents is always welcomed. I hope it just doesn't get, dissolved into the general operating budgets of the different health authorities.
Advocates say there's also a dire need for access to less expensive at-home care.
If a person, a single senior living at home alone, had an income of $29,000 a year, and we were going to give them 1 hour of home support a day, which is not a lot, we're going to charge that person $9,000 a year. So this cost prohibitive issue is real.
Mackenzie says the cost of home care pushes many seniors to preemptively move into long-term care, a push that New Westminster resident Janet Taylor is experiencing. She's the sole caregiver for her 95-year-old husband who uses a wheelchair.
And I don't get a break unless I hire a private agency. It is a tremendous strain on the family budget. And I'm encouraged to send him into care all the time. He doesn't want to go. I don't want him there.
Mackenzie hopes the funding will go beyond providing care to seniors and also support caregivers like Janet.
But the other part of it is I'm caring for my spouse who has dementia, and I can cope with that if somebody can come in so that I can get out of the house for 4 hours.
The funding is part of a deal BC signed in October, where the federal government will provide a total of $1.2 billion to the province for healthcare over 3 years. Michelle Gomez, CBC News, Vancouver.
Richmond Council is about to hear from residents on whether the city needs a supervised consumption site. The proposal is facing backlash, with tens of thousands of people already signing a petition against the plan. As Mira Baines reports, tonight's council meeting is expected to be a long one and heated, with strong opinions on both sides.
A new supervised consumption site is proposed for Richmond City Centre near the General Hospital. But many people in the neighbourhood don't agree with the plan that's set to go to City Council tonight.
Because they want to make our here become second Chinatown. This is Richmond. And we're like, I don't think it's safety for our kids.
I don't like to get to see those people around our building and the schools.
Next block, there is the high school. As a parent, I have a very big concern if we build a consumption site here.
More than 70 people are signed up to speak at tonight's council meeting. About 17,000 have already signed a petition against the plan. Last week, Richmond Council voted 8-1 to ask staff to gauge the benefits and challenges of a site. Councillor Cash Heed among those who supports the motion and harm reduction in general.
For these people to have this NIMBY attitude and spread the propaganda that Richmond is going to turn into East Hastings Street is completely false.
The vote will be on a motion to decide if an official request should be made to Health Canada and Vancouver Coastal Health to set up the site. Last year, there were 26 overdose deaths due to toxic illicit drugs. Heed says a safe consumption site gives people a chance to access help.
We need an intake to get these people inside of these facilities so we can progress them into some other type of help for these individuals.
A former Richmond City Council candidate is leading a group opposed to the plan.
We could also see encampments pop up, like in the central, like the Minnaroo Park around the hospital, the library.
BC's health minister says there is evidence that the sites help save lives.
The record of safety in safe injection sites is remarkable. There is enormous evidence to its positive effects.
Over the weekend, city staff issued a news release to correct a large amount of misinformation circulating in the community. It made clear the site or staff do not hand out drugs to users. The meeting is tonight at 7. Mira Baines, CBC News, Vancouver.
To Kelowna now, where multiple people were taken to the hospital this morning after a driver allegedly plowed into a group of cyclists and vehicles in front of a school. Students and teachers arrived at Rutland Middle School this morning to this scene. 3 vehicles badly damaged and pushed up onto a sidewalk right in front of the school. Police say no one died, but multiple people were hospitalized and the driver of one of the vehicles taken into custody. This woman owns a car involved in the crash and says she was lucky she wasn't inside it at the time.
I parked in one place and it's really slided down and spun around. The car is facing a totally different direction than when I left it.
Police have not said what led up to this crash or if the suspect driver is facing criminal charges. A heads up for SkyTrain users in Vancouver this hour. TransLink says the Canada line is shut down both northbound and southbound due to a medical emergency. A bus bridge is currently replacing service between Waterfront Station and Broadway City Hall stations, and a shuttle train is replacing service between Broadway and King Edward stations. The Expo line is operating as usual. It is a course that was drafted in response to Vancouver's worsening toxic drug overdose crisis. The Street Degree in Overdose Prevention is a first-of-its-kind certification program. It teaches current and former drug users skills like how to administer naloxone. Our Sharia Shatri introduces us to some of the people in the program.
I've been dead before. That's how bad it's been, right? But I was brought back by the paramedics.
A recovering substance user, Sean Graves, says naloxone has saved his life more than once. Now, as a student in the Street Degree program, he has learned how to use it himself.
I make a point of freeing up my schedule to make sure that I at least go to make the course.
Classes are held 2 days a month at Japanese Hall in Vancouver's downtown east side.
As an instructor, you really get to see people gaining confidence and skills and getting good at using the tools that they need to use.
In 2023, there were upwards of 2,500 suspected illicit drug deaths in the province. That is equivalent to 7 deaths a day. The Street Degree program is part of BC's toxic drug emergency response. Since 2017, more than 1,100 people have taken the course. Nearly 80 people have graduated after fulfilling 20 hours of training. Many who take the course work at overdose prevention sites.
It's been really successful. People really enjoy taking it. It's very useful. There's obviously real-world application. It's very practical. There are employment opportunities, and it's a great asset to the camp as well to have those skills.
Start working with us as a casual educator, end up managing at a different OPS and or become a drug checking expert.
One of them is Crab Park resident Clint Redden, who has worked at a number of overdose prevention sites.
It gives you more confidence to go and apply to those jobs, right? And they're definitely more likely to hire you if you got the degree.
Well, it means a lot to people to get the degree. People often want their photo taken with the degree. They want to send it to their families.
The program also teaches broader skills such as conflict resolution, public speaking, and life lessons.
Just teaching you how to be a human again, you know what I mean? Because down here, life can be really, really, really hard.
Shaurya Chetri, CBC News, Vancouver.
You may remember the sextortion case involving a Surrey teen who died after being tricked into sending intimate images and then blackmailed. Well, a Nigerian man has now been charged and is waiting to stand trial. Arlene Young spoke with the CBC's Jason Proctor, who has been looking into this case. And as he explains, cases like this are happening more and more often.
Jason, you actually spoke to the mom of another victim. What did she tell you?
Yeah, I did. And this is exactly as you say, Leanne. What really struck me about this is there's a fact pattern here which is striking and which is absolutely tragic. I spoke to the mother of a 17-year-old who died in Michigan in 2022. His name was Jordan DeMay. Exact same pattern of facts here. Sort of, got online with somebody, spoke with somebody that he thought was an attractive woman online. Again, he's 17, and then gets extorted for cash. The sort of final words that he had back and forth on text where he's desperate and sort of pleading with these people who are asking for $1,000, gives him $300, there's no break, and he tells them he's going to kill himself, and that indeed is what happened. So his mother has been speaking vocally. What is amazing about this case, and what it also sort of ends up relating to the BC case, is that the FBI have gone hard on this, and they extradited 2 suspects from Nigeria to Michigan to face trial on this. And, I asked the mother in this case, what was that like for you to see these 2 men in court? They're 20, they're 22. As she says, there's no way they ever thought they would face the mother of the victim, who's sort of an anonymous mark to them online, and she's standing looking at them. And, just the tragedy of this whole thing is driven home, and also just how nakedly commercial in sort of an evil way this whole kind of fact pattern is.
Right, these boys have lost their lives, but also on the other side of the world, they see this as a business case, right? So what more do we know about these suspects? Because, they seem to all be from Nigeria, at least the couple of cases we've been looking at.
Well, yeah, and there's actually been research that's been done on this called by an institution called the Network Contagion Research Institute. They linked the BC case to the Michigan case to other cases, not in that these people are all, working together as a giant group that know each other, but they're part of this loosely affiliated criminal organization that call themselves the Yahoo Boys. Yahoo coming from these sort of emails that went out, a couple of decades ago, with this sort of classic Nigerian prince scam who's looking to get money out. But they share techniques online. They share scripts, literally. They buy the names of people and get in contact with them. And they share sort of ways to sort of bomb, they call it, by sending flooding emails and sort of Instagram likes into high schools with the hopes that they'll, pick up victims, and it kind of goes from there. So you just see how absolutely kind of horrible this crime is.
It really, really is. And they see it as a business, as you say. So it's just awful to learn these facts. Okay, thank you for that, Jason, for looking into it. It's our Jason Proctor.
Well, let's take you to Vancouver Island, where one man has taken up a rather unusual hobby. He's making coffins and selling them on Facebook Marketplace. This all started after the untimely death of his son out of country. Unable to help with funeral preparations at the time, he found coffin making helped him work through his grief. Take a listen.
It's only in the living room because I moved it out of the porch. I had 2 coffins in my porch for 5 years, and my dear wife, who doesn't quite share my interest in coffins, said one day, "Philip, that's enough, they have to go." I'm Philip Thompson, I'm a regular family guy. I do woodworking. I'm also a commissioner. I can tell you about why I started making coffins. When I was in Canada, I received the news from England that my son had died. He was 20. Nathan Paul Thompson is his name. And it was traumatizing for the whole family. By the time I got to England for the funeral, everything had been arranged, so I had no part in it. A week later, 10 days later, I was back in Canada on my grief journey. Long story short, I thought, I still need to do something for Nathan. I just came to this realization that people who are losing loved ones would love to have a coffin that was made locally. Perhaps they know the coffin maker and they can participate. I really felt strongly that was the missing word for me. I could not participate in the planning of my own son's funeral because of the distance. And so when I designed this coffin, I designed it with big screws on the corners that you physically can handle yourself, and that's a strong participation in the process of putting your loved one in a coffin and of sealing it. I think this is the fourth one, and the first two were sold to a funeral director in Victoria. The third one was sold to a lady because she wants to use that coffin to talk about her own end of life to her family. And this is the final one I have to sell now. And it's come time to sell it for me because I think my own story of bereavement, losing my son at an early age, has now rolled on to a point where I can let this coffin go. I've worked through my grief and love with my hands.
In weather-related news, the BC Cherry Association says this year's crops could be dramatically reduced because of extreme weather. Farmers say January's cold snap caused significant damage to the buds this year, and that's leading to uncertainty about this summer's crop. The group says this is the 5th consecutive year of extreme weather, and it's threatening some farmers' entire survival in the industry. Growers are calling on the provincial and federal governments to invest more money in the agriculture industry to help it endure extreme weather. At 6:15, here is a live look at the Olympic Plaza on Cypress Mountain. Skiers and snowboarders have been taking advantage of last night's snowfall, and it's an especially welcome sight after a season of closures and slushy slopes. And on that note, let's bring in Victa Paulo for our first look at the weather. And Victa, certainly a long time coming, but we will welcome whatever moisture in any form we can take it at this point, especially on the mountains.
No, you are correct, and by the time we talk on our next hit, we'll give a little bit more information as to what we can expect towards the end of the week. But here's the picture that we're looking at right now when it comes to the West Coast. You can see a lot of the regions when it comes to the Southwest are still under above seasonal temperatures, unlike a lot of areas more central to north, which are going to be receiving snow and colder temperatures. Now, here's what it looks like for a brief peek as to the precipitation that we are expecting over the next 48 hours. As you can see, the majority of it is going to be over Alberta, and it seems like we're missing a whole lot of that precipitation, especially in those regions that we saw in our last story. Now, the temperatures, what we're going to be expecting over the next 48, 24 hours, we're expecting a 7 a.m. start to your day, and by 4 p.m., we're expecting about a high of 8 degrees. Make sure to stay tuned with us for the rest of your 3- and 7-day forecast. Over to you.
Thank you. We'll talk to you soon. A big victory for a BC golfer this weekend. Abbotsford's Nick Taylor has won the Phoenix Open golf tournament. It is his 4th victory on the PGA Tour, and it came down to a dramatic finish against Charlie Hoffman. Taylor was under par in 4 of the final 5 holes, forcing the tournament into playoffs with a 9-foot putt for birdie on the last hole in regular play. Taylor walked off with an 11-foot putt for the win. He shared this message later, thanking fans for their support.
Hey everybody, this is Nick Taylor, your waste management champion. The People's Open. Couldn't be more proud to win second home down here. Thanks for all the support, especially the Kane fans. Thanks.
Taylor will now take home $1.5 million in prize money. Well, following a week filled with controversy, one of Canada's biggest Lunar New Year celebrations descended on Vancouver over the weekend. 2 community groups that had been axed from the parade wound up participating after all. But as Janella Hamilton reports, they're still waiting for a formal apology from event organizers.
We are thrilled to stand alongside our greater community to practice culture and welcome the new year in Chinatown together.
Melody Ma says Chinatown's Lunar New Year parade holds deep meaning for her and many others who grew up in Vancouver. But before today, her advocacy group Chinatown Together and 2S LGBTQ+ group Lunar New Year for All were still unsure if they'd be allowed to march. The parade's organizing committee had initially excluded them, later citing concerns over safety and potential political disruption.
As you all know, it's been a roller coaster of a ride this past week.
Ma says the two groups were rejected and then accepted, but shortly after, that invitation was rescinded. After the controversy came to light, organizers said the groups would be allowed to participate after all, but Ma says they never did receive a formal invitation or an apology.
We did get an email of a schedule, so we assume if we got an email of the schedule, we'll show up and see where we are. All the other formally invited organizations received their position in the parade a long time ago. We never heard what our position is until we showed up at the registration desk and we found out we were at the end.
Ma believes the groups were purposely put at the end of the parade, but regardless are grateful to be able to participate.
We are making history today as the first 2S LGBTQIA+ contingent to march in the parade.
Also marching in the parade was Premier David Eby. He says he's glad to see all groups taking part.
You know, this is a community that really understands inclusivity and the need to include everybody, because Chinatown was built because people weren't welcome.
We're hopeful that this is a start to a dialogue and a start to a more welcoming and inclusive event for Chinatown.
The parade's coordinator didn't clarify the reasons behind reversing the decision, but says the parade receives hundreds of applications and not every group is given a spot.
Happy New Year!
Janella Hamilton, CBC News, Vancouver.
Coming up next, talking about sex with your family doctor can be a little intimidating. We find out how to get the information you need without the awkwardness. That's after the break. Stay with us. And thank you for watching our commercial-free live stream. Mount Allison University in New Brunswick is modernizing its 54-year-old campus library. The 5-year project comes with an $85 million price tag. The concept, to repurpose the building while retaining its 70s character. CBC went to check out the new plans.
This is the RP Bell Library on Mount Allison campus in Sackville, New Brunswick. Built in 1970, it's about to undergo its first renovation in 54 years.
It does need some love, I think.
The idea is to turn this 70s-era building into a learning hub that better serves the future students and faculty.
Our classrooms need to be updated in terms of their technologies and the ways that faculty are engaging with students, and as well as our collections. So we'll be making sure that there are good spaces for students, good spaces for faculty, good spaces for research and collaboration and engagement.
In order to bring this building into the future, it's going to take a lot of planning and work. Here's just a few of the changes that need to be made. More outlets, upgraded elevators and entrances, customizable study and gathering spaces, all gender and barrier-free washrooms. While construction isn't expected to be completed until 2029, current students have some opinions on the plans.
It's very bright. It's unwelcoming from what I've seen. It's a bit hostile. I personally don't like how bright and white it is. It feels like not a very fun study environment. I prefer more a comforting environment, I think.
So I saw them on Instagram and I first went through and I was like, oh my God, I love these. It looks beautiful and so bright. And then I went into the comments and everyone was hating on it and they were like, oh, this is like a hospital, all this stuff. So personally, I love it.
Both the project and the building are going to be energy and water efficient and have reduced emissions.
When a contractor's building the building, how do they do it in a way that's clean and doesn't hurt our environment? And then as you get into the design and construction of the building, energy efficient systems to make sure that the building runs and operates in a way that also minimizes our footprint.
And if you're wondering what's going to happen to the books during the renovation, the main collection and some special collections will be moved to the interim library.
Welcome back. Valentine's Day is coming up, and this week we're doing a deep dive into all things love. Navigating a romantic relationship means thinking about everything from blended finances to understanding communication styles. And today, CBC Health columnist Dr. Melissa Lem joins us to talk about something a little more delicate. So, Dr. Lem, talking about sex can be a little uncomfortable for some, even with a medical doctor. So how do you lighten the mood to perhaps encourage that kind of discussion?
I think the context, first of all, is quite important. So bring it up during a context that makes sense for the conversation. Like if a patient's coming in for a Pap test or to renew their birth control or to come in for a condition that is related to sexual health issues. And then it's important for me to approach the topic in a non-judgmental way, to be quite matter of fact, and then also not make assumptions about my patients, whether it's the gender of their partners or their sexual practices, to show them that it's a safe space. And I think it's also really important for us as health professionals to know that not all doctors are comfortable talking about sexual health issues. For example, I not infrequently will see patients who are referred to me by male doctors because they refuse to do Pap tests for their patients. And so I think it's important for all of us to provide better overall sexual health care so we can take care of our whole patients.
Interesting. We understand a common hang-up is what to do if you're in a healthy relationship but experiencing low libido. So what's your advice in that case?
It's important to understand that your libido is only a problem if it's a concern for you. So we get bombarded with all kinds of hypersexualized media, images, dating apps, and hookup culture. But in real life, sex drive is on a spectrum. There are some people with lower sex drive and higher sex drive. So if it's not causing a problem in your relationship, you can let it lie. But that said, if it is an issue, and especially if you notice health symptoms that go along with it that are concerning to you, and if it's a major departure from your normal, then it would be a good idea to talk with your doctor about it.
So if there is a change you've noticed explicitly, okay. Now, on that note, sex, of course, isn't just medical. So in what kind of circumstance would you refer a patient to, say, a sex therapist?
Sex therapists deal with the emotional and mental basis behind lots of issues that we have with sexual health. So that could be anywhere from lower libido to pain during intercourse to issues with sexual trauma or even communication between partners. And their entire goal is to help you deal with and identify issues that come up in your lifestyle or your sexual health that interfere with your sex life. And so there's a huge range of issues that they deal with. It's not just sitting and talking on a couch with a couple all the time.
Yeah, no doubt. What should patients know about how their sex lives might change with age? Because we know that does happen. So what are some common reassurances perhaps you give people in that regard?
First of all, it's quite common for libido to drop overall as you age because of lower amounts of the primary sex hormones, estrogen and testosterone. And also we tend to acquire chronic diseases that can affect our sex drive and also take medications that can affect your sexual health. For women in particular, a common concern is vaginal dryness and tissue thinning, and know that that can actually be addressed in a very effective way, in a safe way by your doctor, so don't hesitate to talk to them about it. And for men in particular, although erectile dysfunction becomes common, it can be a canary in the coal mine for cardiovascular disease. In fact, men over 60 who report erectile dysfunction have a twice as high risk of developing a heart attack or a stroke in the next 4 years. So if we want to have healthy sex lives as we age, we also need to keep in mind we need to prioritize our overall health too.
Absolutely, a lot to think about, and interesting you say as well that people should not be afraid to bring this up and that it should be an open discussion. So hopefully that's the takeaway here. Thank you so much, Dr. Melissa Lem, for joining us today. Many Canadians have been complaining of a nagging cough, sometimes days or even weeks after a viral infection. And unfortunately, for most cases, there are no quick fixes, and it usually does subside with time. But as the CBC's Lauren Pelly finds out, a cough lasting longer than 8 weeks may need medical attention.
Canadians know the feeling, a cough that just won't quit.
I still have it. Yeah, it comes and goes.
I do normally wait it out myself. If it were to last for weeks, though, I would definitely go into the doctor.
Usually, home remedies. So like hot water, mixed with turmeric. That's what we do in our culture.
So what's the best way to tackle a nagging cough? Well, a trio of doctors writing Monday in the Canadian Medical Association Journal say when a cough follows an infection, often it's just a waiting game.
We look through the evidence of what can be used to treat or stop a post-infectious cough. And the answer, surprisingly, is time and patience.
This family doctor says he's only talking about cases where someone had a known viral infection beforehand, like a cold or the flu.
Most of the time, the patient's own cough will resolve on its own without any medication or treatment. But it lasts a lot longer than you think, anywhere from 3 to 8 weeks in total.
But if a cough lasts beyond 2 months, it can signal a deeper health issue. Physicians say other red flags can include coughing up blood, shortness of breath, wheezing, or difficulty swallowing. In those cases, conditions like asthma, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease or COPD, or even whooping cough could be the culprit. And you might need treatment like an inhaler or other medications.
If the cough has been persistent for up to 6 to 8 weeks, then at least to do a basic chest x-ray to make sure there's no serious underlying lung disease.
Doctors say getting a proper diagnosis is important, but for most run-of-the-mill coughs caused by a virus, there's not much they can do. So the advice is just wait it out. Lauren Pelly, CBC News, Toronto.
Well, still ahead, the creators of the ArriveCan app are under fire for misuse of taxpayer dollars. We'll take you through the Auditor General's critiques coming up. Stay with us.
Eldon Ross Pool is one of the few places Sardar Brar can swim for free.
It's a very, very good exercise. From birth to death, you can do it. You cannot do, there's many exercises, you cannot run all your life. But you can swim all your life.
That affordability is important for Katrina Purdy and her 5 kids.
It's not easy for little kids, for like us with little kids and like elderly people to go further places.
Every week, they walk from school to the Norwest Co-op and meet skill developer Desiree Fredette.
We learned very quickly that the kids love going there, and so do our seniors and our adults. We actually have a hard time getting people to come in for programs when there's free swim.
Then they head next door to the pool.
It's a positive thing to do. There's other things kids could be doing, and that's a positive thing to be doing. So we just don't want our kids out on the streets doing negative things.
The city's latest budget calls for the closure of several aquatic facilities, including the Eldon Ross Pool, along with the Happyland and Windsor Park outdoor pools. They will also review attendance, revenue, and operating costs at Sherbrooke Pool over the next 4 years. Community Services Chair Evan Duncan says attendance at the facilities isn't keeping up with costs.
I think that we need to make a decision here if we're going to invest into old infrastructure or turn the corner here and invest into new infrastructure that serves a larger part of the community. Unfortunately, our aging pools are no longer serving anyone.
For people who use Eldon Ross Pool, the nearest alternatives are at Sergeant Tommy Prince Place or the Cindy Clausen Recreation Complex, a 30 to 40-minute bus ride away. Norwest Co-op Community Development Coordinator Michelle Kirkbride worries that could prevent kids from learning to swim.
Swimming lessons can be a barrier for people if they're having to travel out of the community.
Council will consider the budget and the fate of the Eldon Ross Pool on March 20th. Cameron McLean, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Welcome back. The people involved in the contracting, development, and implementation of the ArriveCan app are under fire today. Canada's Auditor General says they ignored basic management practices, and it says taxpayers paid too much for the pandemic app. The CBC's David Thurton has more on her scathing report.
This multi-million-dollar app wasted tax dollars, according to the Auditor General.
Overall, this audit shows a glaring disregard for basic management and contracting practices throughout ArriveCan's development and implementation.
Her audit laid the blame on the Canada Border Services Agency, the Public Health Agency, and Procurement Canada. Travelers were required to use ArriveCan during the pandemic's early days. It is still used for immigration declaration forms, but remains controversial.
I have to say that I am deeply concerned by what this audit didn't find.
Hogan's audit found very little information for awarding GC strategies an uncompetitive contract. Record keeping was so bad that it was hard to estimate the app's final costs. Estimates peg it at nearly $60 million. According to the Auditor General, if the Government of Canada had done this kind of IT work, it would have cost an average of $675 a day. Instead, with ArriveCan's contractors, it costs almost twice as much, nearly $1,100.
In no way are we going to defend this particular contracting process.
The minister responsible for the Canada Border Services Agency says that every single recommendation will be implemented, but also shifted accountability to the CBSA's head.
She is taking all of the appropriate steps to hold anybody to account in the case of alleged wrongdoing, but also to ensure that this kind of circumstance can never be allowed to happen again.
The Conservative leader blamed the Prime Minister.
Won't he stand up today and admit that the app is just like him? It's not worth the cost, it's not worth the corruption.
The Auditor General stopped short of calling this corruption. She left that to the RCMP, which is investigating issues across the CBSA. But she did say that this is some of the worst financial record keeping that she's probably ever seen. David Thurton, CBC News, Ottawa.
Well, back here at home, dozens have gathered at the Vancouver Art Gallery this evening to protest the Israel-Hamas war. It comes in the wake of the Israeli military's latest attacks in the southern Gaza city of Rafah. Israel says it rescued 2 hostages held there, but local officials say that raid also killed dozens of Palestinians. As Margaret Evans explains, Rafah is where more than 1 million people have fled, displaced by the war. And a warning, the stories told here may be disturbing for some.
How long to take in the enormity of your loss, to sit by the side of a dead child and realize you can't follow. These were the scenes in the aftermath of heavy Israeli strikes in Rafah in the early hours. More than 60 people killed, according to Palestinian officials in Gaza. He was born a month and a half ago, says Sayed Al-Hams, of the baby in his arms. The airstrikes, more than a dozen, according to witnesses, came as Israeli special forces said they staged a mission to rescue 2 hostages. The military releasing these images of their soldiers moving in on their target, a second-floor apartment. In Israel, there were open arms waiting for Fernando Marman and Louis Har, both abducted from kibbutz Nir Yitzhak during the Hamas attacks inside Israel on October 7th.
A lot of tears, hugs, not many words.
Har's son-in-law wants his government to negotiate a deal with Hamas for the remaining hostages.
Not yesterday, not tomorrow, today. We want it done as soon as possible in order to give us some breathe. We must breathe a little bit.
Last November, 81 Israeli hostages were exchanged for 240 Palestinians in Israeli jails during a 5-day truce. But Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu insists Hamas only understands force. He's threatening a ground invasion against Hamas militants in Rafah. A government spokesman calling on UN agencies to help Israel evacuate civilians.
In telling Israel not to attack because civilians will be hurt, but then resisting efforts to get civilians out of harm's way, They have rendered themselves complicit with Hamas's human shield strategy.
But Israeli allies, including Britain, are increasing pressure on Netanyahu to change course.
We are very concerned about what is happening in Rafah because, let's be clear, the people there, many of them have moved 4, 5, 6 times before getting there. And it really, we think, is impossible to see how you can fight a war amongst these people. There's nowhere for them to go.
The European Union's foreign policy chief went further.
Where are they going to evacuate these people? So if the international community believes that this isn't a slaughter, that too many people are being killed, maybe they have to think about the provision of arms.
Half of Gaza's population is now crammed into the town of Rafah, 1 million people in a city that before the war was home to just a quarter of that number. They came seeking safety. Margaret Evans, CBC News, London.
After the break, many migratory species may be in trouble, and the reason? Climate change. We'll have more on a new UN report coming up next.
Chinese New Year here, it means it's like Christmas for islanders, right? It's for all the family members to gather together and to celebrate the Lunar New Year. I moved here almost 15 years ago, 2009. Yeah, it's a long, I can call myself an islander too. So
it's kind of like a family Christmas things to you for the family. Like usually in China, we gathering together for the family on Chinese New Year Eve, like a Christmas dinner. So we're gonna hold a big dinner with the whole family together. We're gonna watch the Chinese New Year TV show, and also we do the firework. So yeah, we just celebrate that.
Like as a Chinese, I'm like really proud of my ethnicity, and like I'm just so proud that more people can know about our culture and like know more about like our history and like celebrate with us together. It's really nice. I moved here like 2 years ago, and then it was nice to, just get more involved in this community and in this part of this island, to be an islander. And like I'm just so proud to be a Chinese and an islander at the same time.
I'm so happy, like so many people coming around the world to see my culture and to try to know some culture about that. And in PEI, like I can see like some Indian people celebrate like their festival, and Canadians have their own things. So it's so great. It's like, wow, like you have opportunity to know like the different culture, different things around the world, and then we all respect that, and then just be inclusive, and then like just enjoy that wonderful moment.
Hey, I'm Rohith Joseph. Vibin' is the new show all about discovering great new songs and fresh artists from across BC and beyond. Stream Vibin' on CBC Listen.
A new report from the United Nations says many of the world's migratory animals could soon disappear from the skies and the seas. The CBC's Anand Ram has more on which species are at risk and why.
This is where we study bird migration.
To see just what migratory birds have to go through, here at Western University, they get them moving.
About 80% of the Canadian bird fauna is migratory. They do amazing physiological feats. They'll fly all night long, maybe 12 hours without stopping.
The challenges these birds and other migratory species face are the focus of a landmark UN report covering nearly 1,200 species of birds, mammals, insects, and fish. 1 in 5 of those is threatened with extinction. And for fish, it's even worse. The main problem at sea, say experts, human exploitation.
Hunting, taking for food, taking for sport, taking for sale. And then the second type of impact or threat is bycatch or unintended or incidental capture.
In other words, fish are being killed even when they aren't the target. For birds, necessary pit stops along the way used to be safe. Now, more are shrinking and toxic.
They're flying north during the spring migration directly through the agricultural activities of spring seeding, spring spraying.
The value, say experts, of these animals freely moving is what they bring across different ecosystems.
Salmon, when they migrate upstream into these, nutrient-poor areas, they bring nutrients from the ocean with them. There's pest control, like, what would our forests be like without migratory birds?
Part of a complex engine, and losing these moving parts could destroy ecosystems that ultimately help humans and animals thrive. Anand Ram, CBC News, London, Ontario.
Artificial intelligence is changing our world in many ways. One of those ways is being a weapon in the fight for the planet. CBC reporter Nicole Mortellaro breaks down how AI can help fight climate change despite its own carbon footprint.
Have you ever used artificial intelligence like TikTok filters to turn yourself into an astronaut or ride a dragon? It's fun and harmless, right? Not quite. AI generates millions of images a day, and according to a recent study, just one image can consume as much energy as charging your phone. That's right. Just like most things, AI has a carbon footprint.
We definitely shouldn't kind of view AI as a costless thing. I think it's very easy to view this as abstract thing on your computer that doesn't have any impact, but it does.
So where do those emissions come from? Well, around the world, most AI is hosted in data centers like this one. That sound you're hearing, those are fans being used to keep the hardware cool, as these computers are sucking up a lot of electricity and generating a lot of heat.
Running AI is running any other computer program. You have an input, you want an output, it's going to do lots and lots of operations. And doing lots of operations for one answer means that there's a lot of energy and electricity.
From Netflix recommendations to smart cars and image filters, AI is a big part of our everyday lives. According to the International Energy Agency, data centers and transmission networks account for 1% of global energy-related emissions. That's almost as much as the aviation industry. And AI is a quickly growing piece of that, but it's not all bad. It's also an important tool in the climate fight.
AI is being used in all sorts of ways to address climate action, from helping us better forecast solar and wind on the power grid to help us better integrate those into power grids, to helping better optimize heating and cooling systems in buildings to help kind of improve the efficiency of those systems.
In the global south, climate change is increasing locust outbreaks and threatening food security. An AI tool uses data on soil moisture, wind, humidity, satellite images, and more to predict locust swarms in some African countries. Farmers receive text alerts up to 3 months in advance of an outbreak. AI-powered models are also providing earlier warning systems for natural disasters like floods, and can help map flood patterns to guide disaster response. Here at home, you can see AI in action in some potato fields in PEI. Meet the AgriScout robot.
There were a few people who stopped on the road to see what was going on, what this robot is actually doing in the field.
It may look like a rover that belongs on Mars, but it's actually helping potato farmers, using cameras to look for potential disease in their crop.
It will generate a map with the location information. They can load that map on their cell phone. It will direct you where those infected plants are and get those out. We're planning to attach a robotic arm to it, that wherever it picks on the symptom, it gets those plants out.
And rising temperatures and drought conditions are making wildfire seasons more extreme. Bring in AI. German-based company Dryad is building AI-trained sensors for ultra-early wildfire detection. The company has deployed 20,000 worldwide.
These are solar-powered gas sensors. So behind this membrane here is a gas sensor that is sensitive to hydrogen, carbon monoxide, and volatile organic compounds. So it actually is like an electronic nose that can actually smell a fire. And we can detect fires as small as a campfire, even before there is an open flame sometimes, as long as the gas molecules are hitting the sensor. So we can protect about the size of a football field.
AI is becoming more widely adopted across society, and the types of models that we're using are also changing. Some of the models are getting larger and larger. This picture is changing, and we really have to be on the lookout for the growth in AI's emissions footprint. And fundamentally, one thing that is challenging in getting a hold of that is that there isn't enough transparency.
AI will continue to contribute to greenhouse gas emissions until we move away from fossil fuels.
Having an energy grid that is less carbon intensive means that for the same amount of computation, for the same model, you're going to have less of a carbon impact.
AI is here to stay. We will only use it more and more in our daily lives. But experts say we have to think about how we use it and its consequences.
We can't really afford to be distracted for 5 years thinking about whether the AI is going to be the terminator instead of addressing how it's going to impact climate emissions.
And for a look at the forecast, let's bring in Victor Paolo. And Victor, we certainly had a soggy Sunday, but started to dry out today. Any more precipitation on the horizon?
Well, you know, the good news is if we do take a bit of a peek towards our weekend, there's a chance we're going to be getting some precipitation. Now, how much precipitation? I can't let all the cats out the bag right now. We got to wait till the end of this weather hit to let you know exactly what's coming. But here's what it looks like right now if we take a peek as to what is happening overnight. It's going to be another dry night, a great night if you're someone who loves to stargaze, someone who likes to look up into the sky. And as we do get into our day for tomorrow, around 7 in the morning, you can see there's going to be just a touch of cloud cover, which will be here. Now, with that cloud cover, we're going to be expecting more of a sunny day for your Tuesday. And by the time we get into Wednesday, you can see what is coming our way for the weekend. Now, we just alluded to it. We're expecting some precipitation, but how much precipitation, you might ask? Got to hold on for that one. Let's talk about tonight. Well, tonight, if you look behind me, it will be pretty foggy in the Vancouver area, and we're expecting it to be around 5 degrees. Now, here's what it's going to look like for your tomorrow morning. That sun will come out, dissipate all of those foggy sky that we're going to have, and it's going to be 3 degrees with a bit of sun. And as you do get later on into the day, here's a look at our 3 and 7-day forecast. Well, looking at Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, look at that sunshine. It's going to be pretty above seasonal, quite the mild temperatures. We're expecting a bit of mixed precipitation here on Thursday, but let's take a look at that weekend weather. Here's what's really going on. We're expecting anywhere from 15 millimeters, call that 30 by Sunday, and by the time we get to Monday, there is close to about 40 millimeters of rain that we're expecting to fall over the region. Now, between now and then, we got some sunny days, but we're hoping everyone is going to enjoy the rest of the sunny days before that weekend comes, because as you mentioned, it was a soggy yesterday, and we're expecting some more rain to come on the weekend. But in between all of that, it's nice to get a mix of sun and a bit of mix of rain. Vancouver, hope you have yourselves a lovely rest of your night. And over to you.
Thank you so much, Victor. Coming up, bakers have flocked to Vancouver, vying for a spot on the new season of the CBC's Great Canadian Baking Show. We'll show you what they're baking and how they're doing it after the break. Stay with us.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox.
On March 8th, join CBC Vancouver's Michelle Elliott for a morning of transformative social change at West Coast Leaf's annual fundraiser, the Equality Breakfast. For tickets, visit westcoastleaf.org. And CBC Vancouver is the media partner at the Alumni UBC event, Shaping Solutions for the Housing Crisis, March 11th. Explore this multifaceted issue with panel members who will share their diverse ideas about solving this problem. Register at alumniubc.ca.
Well, bakers of all flavors flocked to downtown Vancouver this weekend to try out for the 8th season of CBC's Great Canadian Baking Show. We caught up with some of the competitors vying for a coveted spot in the competition.
You're always curious when you've done something for a long time. And I've baked a really long time. A lot of people think it's really good.
I think I would do really well aside from bread week. I'm not that great at making bread. I'm not a very technical baker. I'm a very creative baker.
It was a last minute decision. I woke up at 7 o'clock in the morning
And I was like, okay, let me just go and bake. So we are a big fan of the show. We watch it every season.
It'll be a challenge. I think if I get on, it'd be a challenge, but one that I'm super willing to face and very excited about.
And thank you for being with us tonight on CBC Vancouver News at 6. You can watch this newscast on CBC Gem, that's our free app, as well as on YouTube and on our website. We're at cbc.ca/BC. I'll be back with your next local news at 11 o'clock here tonight, right after the National. Good night.